And we'll just give it a couple of more moments to make sure that everybody in the waiting room can join us. Meanwhile, welcome everybody. Okay, we'll get started. Hi everyone, my name is Tanya. I'm one of the regional managers for Australian Catholic Super. I'm based in Canberra. My office is on the ground floor in the St Christopher's Pastoral Centre in Monica. And our topic today is one of my absolute favourites, retirement planning. I think it's a great topic. I know it can be daunting for some people, but the reason why I really enjoy this topic is because I've seen how much of a positive impact super can have on people's retirement and their lives. So even if retirement isn't imminent for you, it's still important to pay attention to your super and to understand the role it can play in what we hope is an enjoyable retirement for you. And joining me today are my colleagues, Phil Johnson. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Tanya.
Phil's one of our financial planners, and Justin Colley's in the background. He'll be monitoring the chat box and join us at the end if we've got time for questions and answers. Just to let you know, the presentation will be live streamed on Facebook, and there will be a recording available on our YouTube channel tomorrow. And if you do want to ask any questions or make any comments, please make sure that you type them into the chat box, and Justin will be mediating them and either answer if he can or save the questions through to the end. This one's for you, Phil.
Oh, thanks, Tanya. Good evening, everybody. Just before we start, we'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, and recognise the continuing connection to the land, the water and the community. I'd like to pay respect to the elders, past, present and emerging.
Thank you. Also, before we begin, please note that any information we provide in this presentation is general in nature. It's designed to illustrate what you can do, not necessarily what you should do. So please don't take any action based on this information before considering how it applies to your own personal circumstances, objectives or needs, and always make sure you read the product disclosure statement and target market determination before you make any investments, and consider seeking financial advice to determine your best course of action. At Australian Catholic Super, we have our own team of financial planners, such as Phil, who can help. During today, we'll also be reviewing the performance of some of our investments, so please also take note that past performance is not a reliable indicator of future performance. So for me, this is the fun part of retirement planning, thinking about the kind of lifestyle you'd like to enjoy. But Phil, what do you consider is important when helping members at this stage of retirement planning?
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. So, yeah, I mean, this is really the beginning of the financial planning journey with retirement planning. You know, financial planners, obviously, we talk a lot about finances and how people are going to fund their retirement. But obviously, it's all those financial decisions are all based on, you know, what you're going to do in your life and what your plans are for your retirement. And we, you know, generally use that as a starting point to try to work out what sort of things people are hoping to achieve, what they enjoy, the sorts of things that they will be requiring, you know, money for, or receiving money during the course of their retirement. So, I mean, just some of the things that people do with their money are listed there. You know, obviously a big one is travel. I mean, haven't seen a lot of that in the last 2 years, obviously, with COVID, unfortunately. You know, let's hope it's all starting to go back to a normal state, and, you know, overseas travel's starting again, literally as we speak, isn't it? So, but, you know, look, many things people like to do, gardening, camping, theatre, travel, all those sorts of things. You know, what are those sorts of things? Let's get them out on the table as part of the process of trying to work out how we create a plan for you.
Thanks, Will. That's great. A lot of people are unsure about the amount of income they might need in retirement, which is one of the most common questions we get. And, you know, when we're talking about what your retirement goals are, it's great to be clear on what you'd like to achieve and just put some, I guess, some dollars next to those goals. But We often refer to ASFA, which is short for the Association of Super Funds of Australia, who publish a guideline on the amount of income you might need to support a modest or comfortable lifestyle in retirement. So you can see that the full age pension actually pays less than what ASFA considers as a modest lifestyle, and considerably less than what ASFA thinks is the cost of a comfortable lifestyle. Phil, can you take us through how you use this information from ASFA to assist our members with their retirement planning?
Well, it's a starting point. Everybody is different, and so yes, it's a very common question. Two very common questions: how much money do I need for my retirement, and how much can I spend or will I spend? And as I said, well, everyone's different. But these figures here, which are a result of a survey of Australians in retirement, give an indication of what the averages that are spent are. So clearly, as you can see from the figures, if you would like, or I'll rephrase that, Australians on average, as a couple, for instance, comfortable retirement is about $63,000. Whereas something that's called a more modest lifestyle, people on average would spend about 41. And then, of course, there's the age pension, and it's there. We put the age pension there to, as Tanya's already said, to compare it for you. You can see that for a couple, the maximum age pension you can get is about $37,000, which isn't quite enough even for a modest lifestyle. So that's how we use the figures, really, to help people to start to get a feel for what is spent on average. But as part of the financial planning process, we actually try to be a bit more precise than that as in our planning by speaking to you about what we think you might need.
One of the interesting things about this ASFA study is, a lot of people often say, well, what's the amount of super I should have? And I had a look into it, and ASFA think that you only need about $70,000 saved in your super to fund that modest lifestyle, because a large part of your lifestyle expenses will be covered by the age pension. So that $70,000 is really just going to bridge that gap between modest and full age pension. But yeah.
And the figure extending that is, I think it's 640,000 for comfortable.
That's right.
Yeah,
there's a big difference between the two. Yeah.
Yes. But I think it's a really good point you made. The thing is, how many times have I heard people say, "Oh, my friend told me I need $1 million, to retire," and well, that may be right, but quite often you don't need maybe as much as what you think, because of the impact at some point in your retirement of receiving some sort of support from the government, usually in the form of the age pension.
Yeah, we actually will touch on that a little bit later on in the presentation, where we have a look at some what we call retirement projections, and we can take you through how that will play out. Yeah, interesting. Philip, the details as well is on this slide. This is where ASFA break down some of the features of the comfortable and modest retirement, or what you could potentially afford just on the age pension. You got any comments around this one?
Yes, well, that's it's all, that's an interesting point, obviously. Well, what do they mean by this modest and comfortable terms? Now, I'm sorry, the writing's a bit small, but the lists there do try to explain kind of roughly what they mean by those terms, and they break it down into a variety of different aspects of your spending. For instance, the top one is talking about holidays. So that's important to a lot of people. What's comfortable, so it says, you can have an annual holiday in Australia, but what's modest? Well, 1 or 2 short breaks in Australia near where you live. So it doesn't sound like you're quite traveling quite as far.
No, we're not going to Paris every year.
Yeah. That's right. Just sort of extending. I won't obviously go through the whole table with us tonight. We're going to be here way too long. But and this information's on the ASPA website, by the way. It talks about other things like what's the talking about going to a restaurant, and the final column there talks about what an age pensioner can do. It talks about having the club special, whereas the person in the comfortable retirement can afford, obviously, to go to a better quality restaurant and things like this. So, look, it's a bit of a rough tool.
It is a rough
tool. It tries to give you an idea. Yeah.
The one that stands out to me is the bottle of wine versus the home brew. Or
yes. That's right. So it looks like all the age pensioners are on the home brew from this table.
Okay. Bill, what are some of the sources for funding retirement?
Yeah. So again, I mean, the reason sort of behind this slide is you're here this evening talking to me from a financial planner working for a super fund, but there's a lot more, there can be a lot more to how you fund your retirement than just your super. Obviously, super is important. There's no doubt about that. But quite often people have some other investments. So might be money in the bank or shares. Sometimes people have planning on investing or have invested in investment properties, and they have rental income. That might be part of their retirement plan. The family house is on that on this graph. In an example, that would be a lot of people plan on downsizing at some point, not necessarily for financial reasons, but sometimes it obviously also releases capital that can be used to fund retirement. So it's just trying to give you the idea that when we're doing the financial planning, you're trying to take the whole situation into account, not just the super.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And Phil, can you please explain the tax benefits of investing within super for retirement, as opposed to, I guess, those other types of investment?
So I mean, I think a lot of people are sort of very generally aware that super is a good investment in terms of tax compared to a lot of other investments. And this slide's just quite trying to simply quantify that for people if you don't know. Super funds only pay 15% tax on the earnings when you're in the phase where you're still contributing into the super. But when you move to a pension, then the tax can be the same as super when you're in what's called a transition to retirement pension. But for a lot of people, when they retire, they're not starting transition to retirement pensions. They're starting the product on the right there, account-based pensions. There's no tax on the earnings, and so look, again, sort of at a high level, I think people would probably be able to see, look, it's great if you can have an account-based pension pay no tax. Well, that's obviously extremely good. But even super paying 15% tax while you're still working, or a transition to a retirement pension, it's still low tax. And that's very, that over the long term, that makes a big difference to the amount of money you can save for your retirement.
I really like that nil tax little portion of that slide there. I think that's one of the things that really tells the story about how superannuation works, and we'll touch on that a little bit later as well. Fantastic. And Phil, can you please take us through when someone can access their super and under what circumstances?
Yes, that's right. So once again, we've tried to sort of put it into when you can access or when you start to draw down or fund your retirement. When can you start to get access to your super? And we've sort of broke it down to say 3 broad categories. If you retire after age 58 at the moment, then you will be able to access your super. Now, I just want to caution everybody that is listening that's of that age. There are potential tax consequences of doing it under 60. But yes, it can be accessed if you retire. at that age, and that's, you have to admit, what's called your preservation age is the technical word for it. Between 60 and 64, you can access your super, well, if you retire, but in addition to that, if you leave a job, so you don't actually have to retire if you change jobs. So, you know, quite often people I speak to, they're not actually retiring at 62, for instance. They've decided to go, you know, they might decide to work less hours in a different job or something like that. They can still potentially access their super. At age 65, however, things become quite simple about accessing the super, because basically at 65, regardless whether you're working or not, you can access your super.
So all conditions are lifted at 65 under the current rules.
Yes.
I've got a question, and one that often a lot of my members that see me in Canberra ask me. There's a lot of school teachers and a lot of teachers, as they're approaching retirement, they actually would be interested in staying on the books, so to speak, and maybe doing some casual teaching. So if that's somebody that you're providing advice to and they're under the age of 65, would they still be able to access that super if they stay with their employer but shift from full-time to part-time or casual?
My understanding is that in the Catholic education system, that if they're remaining with working for the same diocese, then that would not be considered possible. No. Yeah,
that's what I thought too. So that's definitely one for people to keep in mind when they are thinking about what they're going to do at that tail end of their career, and you know, that might be worth having a discussion with payroll or with one of your regional managers or one of our financial advisors on how to go about structuring that arrangement to allow you to access your super. Okay. And Phil, why salary sacrifice?
Oh, okay. So we're now talking about contributing to super, and so we're on this theme about the benefits of super. And one of the things you can do in super is salary sacrifice, which I think a lot of people know. And what is the point of salary sacrificing or putting money into super out of your salary? Well, the idea is that you can potentially save tax. This slide's just basically trying to introduce us to this idea of the marginal tax rate system, and that people earning different amounts obviously pay different rates of tax. I think most people generally know that. So might go to the next slide. So having sort of we basic knowledge that there's the marginal tax rate system, there's a little example here which tries to show you what a tax saving that a member could make if they decided to do a bit of salary sacrifice to super. So in this example, they earn $100,000 a year, and on the table, on the left-hand side, the person is not making any salary sacrifice contributions to super, and on the right-hand side, they salary sacrifice 5% of their salary, and everything is calculated on a fortnightly basis to try to show people what actually happens on your payslip, sort of thing. So again, without going into great detail, I think you can sort of, just following down the two columns, you can see that this person, they go from not doing any salary sacrifice to doing $192 a fortnight. Okay. Now that $192 is a tax deduction. So you can see there, when the taxable income on row is there, that the person's taxable income has reduced. And because their taxable income has reduced, they will pay less tax. But what it's trying to show you there when the take-home pay is that they do get $127 less pay. So you do, salary sacrifice does mean you don't have the same amount of take-home pay, but you haven't lost the whole 192. So you had 192 come out of your salary sacrificed off to super, 192. but your pay only went down 127. And the difference between those two numbers, which is what, about $66, that's the tax saving. So that's the saving you save on the tax. And then you can see right down the bottom row, it tries to calculate it out there for us. It says that that would just little example alone, doing $192 a fortnight, this person would save $1,716 per year. And once again, super, if you're doing that for a long time, which people are in super because it's, it's a long-term investment, that's $17,000 extra saved in tax. And that money's also put in super, and the plan for that is to grow at the same time as well in a tax-effective environment.
That's right, yes. So not only are you saving that much tax over the 10 years, but you're also growing your super, and hopefully you get that compounding effect where, it snowballs into a nice life.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Okay. Here's a technical slide, and I'll try not to get too bogged down in the details, but what we're talking about here are the different types of contributions. We're going to start with what's called concessional contributions. And the reason why we've used, well, why not we, but why the term concessional is used, it's another word for reduced rate or a discount. So in other words, for most people, concessional contributions are cheaper than non-concessional contributions. So this is the way the government's giving us an incentive by way of a tax break or a tax discount to save into super, so we can have more money at retirement and rely less on the government. So there's method in the madness. Okay, so you'll see on this slide we've highlighted that these types of contributions are taxed at a flat rate of 15% for those of us with income less than $250,000 per annum. And you may recall a couple of slides back, we were talking about the marginal tax rates. And the marginal tax rates, remember, they were from 18% all the way up to 45%, and that's without including the Medicare levy. So this is another reason why we are encouraging people to save into super. But because of this good deal that the government is giving us with this tax break or tax incentive, they've also put a cap on this. So the annual cap for this year is $27,500, and that $27,500 captures all of those different types of concessional contributions. So it's your superannuation guarantee, which are now 10% of your salary per annum. It's with your salary sacrifice. And it's important to keep in mind that if you have more than one super fund, the cap takes into account contributions going to all of the super funds, so not just per super fund. I had a meeting with a member the other day, and she'd salary sacrificed last financial year $25,000 into her Australian Catholic super fund, but she was also receiving her employer superannuation guarantee contributions into another super fund. So please keep that in mind. It's a really important point. And the next slide, we're talking about the opposite. So this is non-concessional contributions, and they're not concessionally taxed, and that's why you can put more of this into super each year. So this rate is $110,000 per annum. And the money you use, this would generally come from your bank account. Before it lands in your bank account, you most probably would have already paid tax on it based on your income and those marginal tax rates outlined a couple of slides back. Remember, anywhere between 18% and 45%. So contributions under this type of an arrangement or this cap, just remember you don't pay any tax as it's going into super, because the idea is that you or somebody has already paid tax on that money before it comes in. There's some really interesting strategies that you can use with these types of contributions, but it's also important to be aware of the age-based limits and the limits for those with total super balances over $1.48 million. So we recommend you check out our contributions fact sheets for more information, and definitely consider personal financial advice before making any large contributions to super. Back to you, Phil.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, thanks, Tanya. So you've just covered off, two of the major types of contributions, but there's a couple of other that I definitely see as well. One is called downsizers. The other one's called the spouse contribution. In particular, the downsizer contribution has been one, I guess it's been around for a few years now, but still feels fairly recent. So what the government did there was they said that if you're over 65 and subject to a range of conditions, which I won't go into all of them tonight, but the subject to conditions such as having been your home for more than 10 years, you can potentially take $300,000 from the proceeds of downsizing and put it into super. And look, that's doing that on a reasonably regular basis.
I was going to ask that question: is it a popular strategy for your clients?
Well, yeah, I mean, up until once again, up until fairly recently, it was quite difficult for people over 65 to be able to put much money into super. And so, when this came along, and you've got to actually be 65 in order to do this one. So yeah, no, it's actually proved to be quite popular. And also, I should say, it's per individual. So for a couple, it's $300,000 each. So it's a lot of money. Right. Yeah. So so that's I think that's been a really positive thing that's the government's done in that sense. So that's the downsizer. You can make spouse contributions. What's the advantage doing that? You may be able to save some tax by making a spouse contribution. If it's not of the order of what we're talking about with the downsizers contributions, but
not as exciting, is it?
And look, those spouse contributions are subject to the non-concessional contribution limits. But you can claim a tax rebate by making potentially, I will say, claim a tax rebate by making a contribution into your spouse's super. And also, and for some people, they want to do that because they want to, I don't know, quite often, sometimes they say to me, well, we want to even up the amounts in each other's super by putting it into the spouse and things like that. The consolidation, that's not really a contribution. It's just sort of making the point that sometimes what we do see is that people are consolidating super accounts. Or merging them, and they're doing that, for a variety of reasons. It could be for to simplify their affairs, and it also could be to try to reduce the amount of fees by paying more than one super fund fees. You have got to be a bit careful with that, because if you're going to consolidate funds, you need to make sure that you're not going to lose any benefits and things like, I don't know, insurance and things like that if you do that sort of thing. But yes, it's but simplification. I'm all for simplification. Fantastic.
Thank you. Okay. This slide just talks about a couple of the ways that you can access your super once you've reached, those preservation ages and you've satisfied those various conditions of release. Phil, have you got any comments about this one?
Yep. So really, as the slide describes, two main ways: lump sum or income stream. So you can, once you've met a condition of release, once you've got access to your super, you can take money out of it as a lump sum and cash it out. The other way is to draw it as a regular income. I guess probably the point we're trying to make here is this: if you keep your money in, if you've been working and you've got your super account you've been adding into, it doesn't just start automatically paying you an income stream. Yeah, you can take lump sums out of it when you retire, but it won't give you an income stream. You need to change into a pension product. A rollover is the word we use. An income stream, and generally these types of income streams or account-based pensions are the kind of products that we offer in Australian Catholic Super. Income streams, very popular for people that need regular income to fund their retirement.
Fantastic. Before we jump more into those income streams, what are some of the, I suppose, common scenarios where people would like to access a lump sum from their super at retirement?
Oh, sometimes, unfortunately, probably, sometimes I want to repay some debt.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, that's one of the reasons. But I mean, there's lots of reasons. I mean, they might be another one is they want to give money to kids. So that's quite a common one. Helping children, might be you know, going on a trip, or renovating the house. You know, all those sorts of things. Or it could be that they're taking a lump sum because they want to have some other form of investment. You know, so you know, they might be wanting to invest. You know, I don't know. Sometimes they want to buy an investment property or something like that. So they're the main sort of ones that I hear. Yeah.
Okay. This slide was talking a little bit about what you mentioned before, how when you're in your working life, you're contributing to super, but you sort of turn it around when you get to that retirement age, and you kick off a pension account. And as you said, it doesn't just happen automatically. You actually have to take action,
That's right,
paperwork, and open the accounts. Is that something that you do on a regular basis with your clients?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, this is you know, very common. I sort of might have jumped the gun here a bit, or he might have explained most of this slide.
No.
But yeah, I mean, that's right. It's you have these two phases of super, and most people are familiar with the one on the left hand side, because they're not retired, but at some point generally people retire and move into the pension phase. And I think the interesting point there probably is, particularly in the pension, that yes, with a pension you can, you know, get a regular payment, but you can also take lump sums. So if you do need, you know, so you know, it's not uncommon for someone who's actually taking a pension who says, "Oh, I want to buy a new car. I need, you know, I need some money to buy a new car." So you don't, you can just take extra money out of your pension, in addition to the regular pension payment. So quite flexible.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the things that I was helping one of my members with this week. First lady I've met face to face since lockdown, and she was in this situation where she just popped into the office because she wanted to take a lump sum from her pension account to pay for something. Yeah, and it is a very common scenario. So you've really got this one account that can function for a lot of your needs in retirement, pay you a regular income that's almost there to replace your salary that you're no longer receiving, but also act, I suppose, like a bank account, so to speak, where you can take a lump sum. But what you can't do, which a lot of people don't realise, is once you've got a pension account, you actually can't put the money back into it.
No, you can't add any money to an existing pension, and so sometimes people keep a small super account for that reason.
That's right. Or maybe they need to open a new super account if they've, you know, rolled everything. And these are all things that are common scenarios as well.
Yeah. And I guess we didn't. Sorry, Tanya. I was going to say, I don't know whether I highlighted the point that the super pays 15%. That last lines, you know, the super. While ever you stay in the super, because remember, no one's going to automatically open you a pension.
That's
so
right.
So while your money's in the super, it's 15% tax on the earnings, whereas move to the pension, no tax on the earnings.
That's right. And when you're having a look at our different investment options and how they perform, so our investment performance page of our website, if you're in exactly the same investment in super and you look at the performance there, it will have a lower return than exactly the same investment in the pension account. Now, they're the same investments, the same funds, but the difference between the returns is one's had tax deducted and the other one hasn't. So that's right. So it should be an incentive to really take action, or at least consider taking action when you get to that point where you know, you can access your super. So having a bit of a think about that and how that might work for you. All right. Now, we offer an allocated pension plan product, and you can draw on your super to fund your retirement. That's the whole idea. So looking at the slide, you can see the flow of money where you start by pushing funds into super by receiving and making contributions. Then once you've retired or reached preservation age, you can then start pulling the funds out. So it's almost like a push and a pull. So if you're under the age of 60, Phil mentioned this earlier, you should be aware and you should be prepared to be paying tax on this pension income. However, there will be a 15% tax offset, but once you've reached age 60, the pension income will be received tax-free. So 60 is sort of the golden age where you can start accessing your super tax-free. That's assuming you've met those other conditions of release that we talked about earlier, which is essentially you've either retired or you've ceased an employment arrangement. You'll also notice that the amount you withdraw from your pension account is subject to minimums, and the minimums are based as a calculation, a percentage of your account balance determined by your age. So that changes. Well, it's recently changed with COVID and the financial downturn that came with COVID, and it also happened during the GFC as well, where the government requires you to draw a minimum from these accounts because they don't want them to last forever, because remember, they're a tax-free investment, so they're designed to be drawn down during the time of your retirement. So they have introduced these minimums, but during the GFC and during COVID, they halved the minimums. And that's just a temporary measure. It's actually worked out quite well for a lot of people during COVID because they haven't needed the income because they're not spending it on things like travel, etc., etc. So a lot of people have been quite happy to reduce their drawdown. But a couple of key points to note with this as well. There's no maximum. So you can have a small pension account balance and decide that you want to take $10,000 a month from it, and that's fine, as long as you're not under a transition to retirement arrangement, because there is maximums. So you can draw on a regular basis as much as you like, but you'll stop receiving any payments once the account balance has eroded. So as long as you are maintaining the minimum, you can be flexible with how much you take, and you can change that too. So we have forms, we help our members if they are going through a patch, for example, where expenses are quite high and they're needing a little bit more income than what they normally would receive, then you can change your regular pension payments, and then if you want to change it back once you've got through that patch, you can do so. Those sorts of arrangements. So our product is quite flexible in that respect. There is another interesting pension product that I might ask Phil to explain this one. This is the regular one. I'm jumping ahead of myself here. So Retired Choice is our standard pension product. Sorry about that, Phil.
That's all right.
Yeah, so Retired Choice is the one that you do have a lot of flexibility. You've got control over how your investment decisions, how you're invested. It's up to you. You can choose your funds, you can choose how you draw on them, but it's these one's for me as well. So, and we offer 13 different investment options for your money in the Retired Choice product, and you can pick the option that best suits you and your appetite for investment risk. And if you're wondering what am I talking about with appetite for investment risk, well, that's really where a financial planner can help determine, and it's things like, are you a conservative, nervous investor? Or are you at the opposite end of the spectrum where you might be a very experienced investor and you're quite comfortable with the fluctuations of returns? So we've got 13 options that you can choose one or a handful of them that are going to work for you. But I always recommend that you seek financial advice, particularly when you're coming to this stage of your life where you do want to set yourself up for retirement. But Phil, this is the complicated one, and it's a really interesting product. It's called Retire Smart, but it's definitely not for everyone. So Phil, if you want to explain.
Okay. So just putting my little slant on things. We've got two different pensions. We've got Retired Choice, which Tanya was just talking about, and we've got Retire Smart. So they're both account-based pensions. They both provide regular income in retirement. They're both tax-free investments. It's just that the one, as Tanya just said, Retired Choice is gives you the ability to tailor the investment for how much return you're trying to achieve, how much risk you're prepared to take. So, okay, so Retire Smart is more, I kind of try to maybe use the word like set and forget kind of strategy. I know, like, I won't say forget, but it tries to sort of make it a simpler approach for the member, but it's not as tailored. So basically, the idea is that the fund is making decisions on your behalf about how the money should be invested. So it's not really tailored for you, but the main way it works is this: it tries to put some money. I think there's maybe, can we just go to the next slide for a second? Yeah, so you can see there this idea. We like to call them buckets. There's two buckets within this Retire Smart pension. One is cash and one is growth assets. So the idea is you have your pension payments, because you know you're going to need regular income in retirement. You have them drawn out of this cash bucket. But of course, I think most people know you can't earn very much money in cash. So you don't want to have too much money there, but it is good to have some money there. So it's usually a couple of years worth of the pension payments go into the cash bucket. But then the bulk of your money is invested in this growth assets bucket. And so the fund is choosing that growth bucket. And so the idea is the bulk of your money is sort of invested for the long term, because you need the growth to help fund your retirement, and the cash bucket's helping pay your pension payments. And of course, what then's happening is there is money moving back and forth between the growth bucket and the cash bucket. Probably the main reason being is, obviously, if you've got a cash bucket and you're drawing down on it, it's going to run out of money, so it needs to be topped up. But it's all automated. So that's, and that's kind of like the beauty of it, from the member's point of view. The fund's doing it all for you.
All automated, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're not getting a product which is going to give you a investment which is tailored for you, which is what the Retire Choice does.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes. Okay. Thank you. This is a really hot topic. Often we forget to think about this longevity. My grandmother lived until she was 94, and I'm aiming for 100. But how does this impact things, Phil, when we're helping our members plan for their retirement?
Yeah, my grandmother lived to 94 too, but I'm not aiming for 100. Well, I guess we're just sort of changing tack a little bit, but we're on the subject of pensions and how long your money should last. So, how long does your pension have to last? That sort of thing. I think what this slide is really just doing is raising some of the issues that we discuss as financial planners. When can I retire? When can I afford to retire? Longevity, we're living longer. That's what we're getting at. We're living longer and longer. And so we need our money to be able to last longer. So it raises all these important issues like we've just been talking about. What sort of returns am I going to get on my investments? When can I retire? How much money do I need? Do I have enough? All these things are all related to how long you want your money to last. As financial, in this job as financial planner, we're generally having discussions with people about family history, just like you were sharing with us. So Tanya, you need to fund at least to 100 by the sound of it.
That's right.
That's the kind of discussion we would be having around that. Well, that's your goal. So let's see what can be achieved there, and what you need to do, and how much money do you need, and all those sorts of things. That point there about the COVID. I remember that unfortunately for all of us, I guess the subject of COVID started coming up in our seminars when COVID started, and the market had fallen quite substantially, and everyone was naturally very concerned about the impact of COVID on their retirement savings. Of course, what has generally happened is that the market did fall with COVID, but it's actually recovered. So look, once again, I haven't got a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen with COVID, and we may well not be out of things completely. But COVID had it definitely had an impact on our members' funds, but then it has been a good strong recovery since. But it just goes to show you, when you're financial planning, you're talking about long-term investments, and the markets do go up and down in the short to medium term. And COVID is yet another example of that happening. It's something we always take into consideration.
I think one of the things we're going to talk about next is a key part of, or one of the key benefits of receiving financial advice, is that a financial advisor can help you understand how long is your money going to last based on a range of variables. So these next couple of slides are going to just give you an illustration of what these projections look like. So here we've got our case study is a couple. They're both age 65. They've both got $300,000 in super each. They're homeowners, and they'd like to target a retirement income of $63,000 per annum. We've kept the example really simple by having no other investments. So their key funding for retirement is going to come from their super, and we've assumed that there's inflation at 2.5% per annum, and they're getting a return of 5%. So I'm just going to go to the illustration here, and Phil, if you could just take us through what is this illustration showing us?
Yes, so that is, in simple terms, that's a graph of a person's retirement funds from the start when they're 65, and it's showing you that when they basically shows you when they run out of money. And in this example, it's about 93 or 94.
So that wouldn't work for me if I want to live till 100.
No, that's right. So this in this example, but what it is showing is that for people on average, you come back to that $63,000 that is talked about there. Where is 63 coming from? You go back to our beginning of our presentation. We're talking about the ASFA comfortable lifestyle couple. It's about 63,000. So that's what it's trying to show you. If you live that average couple, if you're that average couple, so Gary and whoever this other person, can't remember the wife's name in our example, but yeah, they live on that typical average moderate comfortable lifestyle, and the money's lasting till 93. Statistically, women on average who live longer than men are living into their late 80s. They've covered their probably over and above their statistical life expectancy anyway.
Okay.
But once again, we do it for the individual when we're doing a projection for people. Clients.
Yeah. Okay. I think the next slide shows a bit of a breakup of the different income that is behind those figures.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of stuff on these graphs, but the broad idea is to try to what it's trying to show you is income and expenses. So you might be able to see there's a horizontal red line at the top of the graph. That's the 63,000 that the people need to live on. Okay, and what it's showing there below, those coloured bars are different forms of income. So it's showing that these people are funding their retirement basically through two main sources of income. So the purpley colour in this example is an account-based pension, which we're talking about super, but you can also see that the dark blue is income support, or what's the age pension, and this comes back to what we were saying earlier in the presentation, that people are often surprised about what they actually need for retirement because they haven't taken into consideration how much money they might receive from the age pension. And it varies over time because it's means tested. So you mightn't necessarily get it straight away, but at some point, generally speaking, as assets goes down, then pension payment, our age pension payment may go up. And you can actually kind of see that on this graph even, that you can see the age pension sort of slowly going up, which is the blue, but then it goes horizontal, stays flat, doesn't it? And that's because they've reached the full age pension.
Right, I see. Okay, yes, because in the first year they're not eligible for the age pension.
No.
So they're just living on their super alone. And then,
that's right.
Right, it kicks in and then increases.
Yeah, well, they're probably not old enough, I suspect.
That's interesting. Okay. What about, here's me being devil's advocate here. What happens in the future if age pension becomes more difficult to get? If they tighten up the eligibility, which we're going to talk about in a second. But what would you say to members that you're meeting today about future reliance on age pension?
Well, look, our basically we use whatever the legislation is.
At the moment, yeah.
So because that's the only thing that we actually know. Part of the difficulty in this job is obviously we're dealing with the future.
Yeah, and
the unknown. But look, one of the things we try to do when we're doing this sort of modelling in our reports that we write and things like this, we sometimes look at alternative scenarios.
Okay.
So our software will tend to show a result based on what we know is the rules regarding age pension now, but we can show we can show projections where the parameters can change a little bit. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Not really the age pension though, because we use the legislated amounts.
Sure. Okay. It's definitely worth keeping in mind, isn't it? That it's important to, I suppose, have a plan B, perhaps. Okay. Talking about eligibility and assessment. So one of the key ingredients for many people's retirements, obviously, is the age pension. It's important to understand some basics about eligibility. So you need to know at what age you can apply for the age pension, and that depends on the year you were born. We'll take you through that in the next slide. You also need to be a resident of Australia. So that's a little bit tricky if you're one of those people that likes to spend half your life in Bali or something like that. And then once you've met those two criteria, then the next step is Centrelink look at your assets and your income, and they run a test to see how much age pension you'll be eligible to receive under the income test. And then they run a test to see how much age pension you'll be eligible to receive under the assets test. And the test that gives you the lower entitlement is the one that they apply. So that's really important to keep in mind. So here are the birth dates that you have to look at to determine when you'll be eligible for the age pension. If you've already reached age 66, you're already eligible. And if you're born on or after the 1st of January 1957, under the current rules, you'll have to wait until you've reached age 67. So if you're planning to retire before you reach age pension age, then you'll have to go through a period in the first few years of retirement that you'll have to be fully self-funded. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So it's really important to plan for these various stages throughout your working life, and when you get to the end, that yes, if you do want to retire early, and you can, there's nothing stopping you. You just got to keep in mind that you won't be able to access any age pension until you get to that age. Phil, the assets test and the income test over the next couple of slides. Do you want to just give us a quick run through?
Yeah, I'll just go through it quickly because there's a lot of numbers. But I mean, you've just described sort of some of the broad principles about the means testing, and this is just sort of putting some numbers on it. And one of the things you can probably pick up from the slide is that Centrelink distinguish between a homeowner and a non-homeowner. So people who homeowners are subject to a different rate than people who are homeowners, and that's what the graph's trying to show. So, for instance, and also they're looking at single people and couples. You can see there on that particular slide that the example of the single homeowner, if you have assets of less than $270,500, under the asset test, you'd receive the full age pension. On the other hand, if your assets are more than 593,000, then you wouldn't get any age pension. And then that sort of colour, I don't know, the sort of that grey colour between the orange and the
grey zone.
Yeah, the grey zone. Thank you. That's very good. The grey zone is you're getting a variable amount, just depending exactly where you land between those two. Those two.
Okay.
Those
so
two.
It's not an all or nothing thing.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It's shading in and out, isn't it? That's right. And I mean, I don't think we've mentioned it, but for those who don't know, Centrelink, when we're talking about these asset values, they're not counting your home.
So your home is exempt.
Yeah, so your home is exempt, and that's right. So I mean, I think people can see the figures for themselves, but so I won't read them all out. But
okay, there it is again for the
couple. So exactly the same principle as we've just said, but here is a couple. Okay, I would probably just I think that's the right thing, Tanya. We just give people the concept here so that they can sort of see how it works. With the age pension and the income test, these are now these are the thresholds for that. So it's the same kind of principles as the asset test, in the sense that well, let's just use the example single person again. If you earn less than $180, that's per fortnight, by the way. So Centrelink generally does most things in fortnights. Every fortnight is a different review period. So if you earned, a single person earned less than $180 in a fortnight, then they would, under the income test, they'd fully pass it and be potentially eligible for the full age pension. However, if they receive more than $2,115 in a fortnight, then they wouldn't get anything. And once again, you've got the grey zone.
The grey zone.
Where you sit. That's right. Yeah.
It shades out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, great. This slide really tells you how much you should expect to receive from Centrelink under the current rates, and so this is the maximum entitlement. So for a single, it's a little bit over $25,000 per annum, which breaks down to just a little bit over $967 per fortnight. And if you're a couple, it's a little bit under $38,000 per annum, which is a little bit over $1,458 per fortnight. So if you sort of have a think about those figures and compare that to your current salary, you can really get a bit of an idea to see the difference in retirement lifestyle, particularly if you're just going to be relying on the Centrelink age pension. So compare that to your current salary. And if you are already living on that kind of salary, then retirement's not going to be that much of an adjustment for you if all you'd be relying on is the age pension. But if it's the opposite, it's a really good time to have a bit of a think about it and to think, well, okay, is it time for me to actually start paying attention to my super and start taking action? One of the other things, if you don't qualify for the age pension, you still might qualify for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card and still receive some of those healthcare benefits associated with the age pension. The good thing about the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is it's not asset tested. It is, however, income tested. And for most people who are retired and not working, they generally qualify for the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. But Phil, this actually leads me to a question. How does Centrelink apply the income test to super, and particularly to those allocated pensions? And this is not just for Commonwealth Seniors Health Card purposes, but also for age pension. Does Centrelink look at the actual amount of income you're drawing from your super, or what do they look at there?
Well, it can be a complicated answer, but I'm not going to give a complicated answer because, in today's seminar. But look, generally speaking, for people who are starting allocated pensions or account-based pensions and have not been on any form of income support before, I guess that'd be the main group of people we're probably talking about here, is Centrelink deem the income.
What does deeming mean?
Yeah, so deeming simply means that they're not going, Centrelink do not actually take into account what you actually earn or what you actually draw down from your pension. They deem it to earn a certain amount of income.
Right.
So you can potentially take quite a large income from your account-based pension, and that would not be counted. They just don't count it that way. They take the deemed income, which relates to the value. It's a percentage of the value of the account-based pension.
Okay, that's really interesting. It's good to know. That's something that a lot of people I talk to aren't quite sure of. They find that that's a really interesting point. Okay, fabulous. Estate planning, Phil, what comments can you make here?
Well, it's just another aspect that comes into financial planning, and because it comes into it's people's another part of aspect of people's finances and their lives, and just making sure that these sorts of issues are thought of and addressed. We as financial planners, we're not lawyers, so we don't provide what we call personal advice in relation to wills and power of attorney, but we do work with solicitors, and we are pointing out to people that these things are important and need to be considered as part of a financial plan, and particularly how you plan your assets to pass. And also part of that is obviously nominating beneficiaries on super, to make sure, once again, that your intentions with your super when you pass away, the money goes where you wish it to go.
It's can be quite an interesting topic when talking to people about what will happen in the event of their death to their super, and it's something that all of us here at Australian Catholic Super, we're very keen to make sure that our members have made a nomination for their beneficiaries of their super, and it's certainly something that your regional manager can help you out with paperwork as well. So keeping in mind, and on the same theme, talking about general life planning, a lot of it does happen at that point of retirement where you think, well, what's going on in the next chapter of your life? Not only do we think about what's going to happen when we die, but this in-between phase, aged care, it's something that I'm going through with my mum at the moment, and it's not a great topic, but is certainly something that does need to be considered for that last chapter of your life, really.
Yes, and I guess that's right, and unfortunately, it's also a complicated area.
It is a complicated area. And can we help our members with financial advice around this topic?
We can. We do provide some services around this. So I think I would probably just encourage people to have a talk to us about what we could potentially, how we can potentially help in those areas. It usually comes up anyway as part of, when we're discussing people's plans and things like that. And it may, quite often it's not necessarily like you were talking about, it's not necessarily the clients themselves that we're talking about, it's their parents that are facing this part of their lives. And so yes, it says it there on the slide, doesn't it? Planning for others.
That's right.
Yeah. So yes, so we encourage people to talk to us about that as well.
I'm sorry, folks, we've gone over the hour mark. We've just got a little bit to go. So if you can stick with us, that would be great. If not, we completely understand. The next couple of slides are really just I think Phil's outlined a lot of the benefits of working with a planner, but I'll just, if you can explain it, and I'll work my way through the slides for you.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so sorry for everybody. I'll try to be brief, but I think I have covered probably most of this in a sense already this evening. But financial planners, we can help with that sort of information about about when you about you know, a variety of different things as we've talked about tonight. Sometimes people you know, they're considering before they see us, or is it worth it? Is it worth getting financial advice? Because some of the, you know, the comprehensive services we do, we are a fee-for-service organisation, so there is fees for that, which we would quote people for. But you know, you've got to think about, you know, we offer intangible benefits in the sense of, I think a lot of the time we're offering people peace of mind. You know, can I afford to retire? You know, what's my plan? Can I have some structure around this? I think financial planners provide all that. They can provide, you know, hard dollar amounts as well. You know, things like, you know, you're moving your money into tax-free investments, or you're, I don't know, salary sacrificing and saving tax. So there's, you know, you can actually see tangible benefits there as well. But those I wouldn't underestimate the benefit of the peace of mind of having a, you know, professional look at the situation, particularly if you're not someone who, you know, this is not your field. Yes.
Yeah, I think that it's difficult to put a price on the value of peace of mind, isn't it? It's been, you know, my privilege to be able to work with members and with the whole financial planning process, and just see the confidence that getting financial advice, particularly at this critical point of getting ready for retirement, being able to enjoy the confidence that receiving advice can bring to somebody, and just knowing that you're on the right track, and if not, knowing what are some of the things that you can do to work towards getting on the right track. I think it's a great experience. Okay, our financial advice offerings are available in a couple of different formats with your regional managers, and even over the telephone. With our helpline, we can provide general advice. And at the start of this session, we talked about general advice being really just information on what you can do. So remember, general advice isn't a personal advice, which will tell you what you should do. We do have personal advisors that can assist you over the phone, and they are limited to just a few key topics, and it's only regarding your investment with the Australian Catholic Super Fund. So those over the phone advisors can assist our members with contribution advice, with how to invest your funds, and a couple of other topics. And this over the phone advice comes at no additional charge. It's actually paid for already out of your member fee. So it's one of those services that is part of your member fee that a lot of our members don't take up. So I couldn't encourage you more to do that. And there's no limit as to how many appointments you have over the phone. Of course, you know, we have to be sensible and make way for other people, but it's nothing stopping you from having it once a year. And then it comes to the comprehensive advice, which is Phil's area, and he works with a team of other comprehensive advisors. We are able to seek their advice face to face. Has been difficult during COVID, but that's all starting to come out. And we also allow our members to have meetings by Zoom. And if you're not comfortable with that and you're happy to do that over the phone, well, you certainly can. But just a reminder that comprehensive advice does come at a cost. The first meeting is free of charge. It is a consultation where you can work with your financial planner to talk about the topics that you'd like advice on, and then at the end of the meeting, your planner can provide you with a quote. Anything you'd like to add with that one, Phil?
No, I think that's about right. The first appointment is free, as you said, and then we'll quote a price. You know, look, we're a member service, so we're here to help people.
Just a quick question: the process. If you could just give me a quick rundown on the process of comprehensive advice, because I think a lot of our members who haven't experienced comprehensive advice before may not realise that takes a little bit of time. So can you give us an idea of how that works?
Oh, okay. So, we basically have an initial meeting, and in order to make that meeting as productive for you as possible, we ask if you can do a bit of homework, I guess. So, you know, we need to basically be able to understand your financial situation. It makes it you'll have a much more productive and better meeting, I would say, with the financial planner if you are prepared. It may, yeah, if you front up to the financial planner, yes, you might get your free meeting. But if you're not prepared, what you're going to find is the financial planner is going to want to know a lot of things, because if you're going to ask them what you think they should do, you need to know. And so, we've got we email out to the clients usually the information that we would like to have back before the meeting. And that gives the financial planner time to prepare for the meeting. So we do that. We try to get that sort of homework and preparation before the meeting. Then we have the meeting, explore the goals and what's going on in someone's lives, the stuff in the meeting. Provide a quote if we both agree that we can provide some benefit to you, and if you're happy with that, then we will write you a report called a statement of advice. It usually takes approximately a month to prepare, and then we will present it to you, go through it with you, make sure you're happy and understand it, and do the vast bulk of all the paperwork, which is the really horrible part in the process that we really try to help people. Yeah.
Okay. And I suppose the point that I was trying to make there was that if it is something you're interested in, definitely start off talking to your regional manager or talking to somebody on the helpline within that general advice first, before you move on to the comprehensive. But once you're at the comprehensive, just keep in mind it will take a little bit of time. So if you want financial advice for your retirement, please don't leave it to the last minute. Please get in touch with us, at least a few months out. And then it just makes the whole process a lot less stressful, and you can enjoy the process, which can be really enjoyable and really enlightening for a lot of people. Okay, I really wanted to take this opportunity towards the end of the presentation, if you're still with us, to talk about some new legislation and how it's impacted our fund. Now, we're off the topic of retirement planning, so if you need to drop away, I completely understand, but this has been something that's been quite topical. So the government introduced legislation called Your Future, Your Super, and the whole idea behind Your Future, Your Super was to review the superannuation industry, to review super funds, and to point out and to create a little bit more structure that would help the average Australian super member get a better benefit out of super. And there's a couple of bits and pieces around this, but I'm going to talk particularly about the performance test. Now, the performance test was first introduced in the federal budget, and it was announced in October 2020, which is just over a year ago. And there were 9 months of intense lobbying between government, industry bodies and funds as to the practical application of the test and how it would operate. And then it was actually legislated. So it was really just an idea up until it was legislated. It was a well-formulated idea, but it came into effect June 2021, and it commenced the next month in July 2021, which is only a few months ago. The regulations which contain the specifics of how the test would operate were released in early August 2021. And the results of the performance test were published on the 30th of August 2021. And our fund was notified on that date that our MySuper default investment option did not pass the test. And so the MySuper default investment option is the investment that you are put into if you don't choose your own investment. So it's an option that we've built for that member who would prefer not to make their own investment choice, or perhaps didn't know that they could make their own investment choice. And according to APRA, who is the super regulator, they said that we did not pass the test. So how it works is the test looks at the previous 7 years performance of the MySuper option and compares it to a predetermined benchmark. So it's not comparing our super fund to other super funds. It's comparing our super option to what the government thought was an appropriate benchmark, or thinks is an appropriate benchmark. So our current default investment option is called Lifetime One, and it hasn't been around for 7 years. And so what the government have done is they've added on the previous default investment option, which is called Conservative Balance, and they've put the two together to determine our performance results. So the combination of the two products did not pass this mandated test. So this year the test only relates to the MySuper investment option. It doesn't affect members invested in our other 13 options that we have available. So we covered off on those 13 options before when we were talking about the allocated pension. So you do have choice if you wish to transfer your funds to one of the other options. To date, so we don't actually know, all we know is we didn't pass the test. We don't know by how much. So we have been notified of our exact position to the benchmark. So this slide summarises the reasons why we didn't meet the benchmark. It's interesting to note that the general wisdom is that past performance isn't an indicator of future performance. However, this test is indeed looking back in the past. Well, a couple of the reasons that we've been able to identify that we think caused us to not pass the test is our shares portion of our portfolio didn't perform as well as the statutory benchmark. And in the financial year ending 2018, we restructured our shares portfolio with the intention for it to perform at a higher rate, at a better rate. And another one, this is quite a technical part of the performance test, is our alternatives investment portfolio was classified by the regulator as holding more growth assets than our portfolio actually held. So our portfolio was more conservative, and as a result, we didn't achieve as high a return as what the benchmark we were assessed against. We've previously acknowledged underperformance 6 to 7 years ago, and since then, performance has actually been quite strong, as you can see on the next couple of slides, particularly in the last 12 months and since we've introduced the Lifetime One option. So there have been many different explanations and viewpoints about the performance test. It's just the first year that the performance test has been in place. A lot of super funds are now that they're aware of how the performance test works, quite a few funds have changed their investment objectives to align with the performance test. There's quite a lot of detail. It is quite complicated, and there is a dedicated section on our website if you'd like a little bit more information. The Australian government have also created a comparison tool where you can have a look to see how different MySuper default options have gone against the performance test, and we encourage people to go and have a look at that tool, which is on the ATO website. Our current default option, Lifetime One, is meeting its intended objectives. It's only been around for 3 years, so just remember the performance test looks back at the last 7, not just the last 3. Even though we have been meeting our intended objective, it's important to not be confused with meeting the performance test, as APRA have a completely different set of benchmarks. The investment performance with Lifetime One has been quite strong, and you can see on that slide it says that for members up to the age of 40 years old, it's earned 20.9% after fees and taxes for the last financial year. And this slide, we can see the returns of our Lifetime One product over the last financial year and an average over the 3 financial years since it was introduced. If you're wondering why there's different returns and different age brackets on there, this is the design of the product. It's designed to become more conservative as the member ages, and with a more conservative investment, you have a lower risk and in turn a lower return. Looking at the previous 12 months, you can see some great investment return figures there, and if you want to average it out, we can give you 3 years, which is the average since Lifetime One, our current default, has been around. So the outlook for the fund, well, we truly do continue to have your best interests at the centre of everything we do. We offer award-winning insurance within the fund, and we provide that personalised service that we know that our members really enjoy. We've recently reduced our fees, which helps to boost your investment returns, and we're always working hard to uncover new ways to support our members. One of the key items on our agenda is to find a larger super fund to merge with. The government are encouraging us to do this, and they think it will be in members' best interest to become a larger fund. And the reason behind this is that the benefits of merging with a big fund is to provide economies of scale. So economies of scale is really just talking about how the more you have to invest, the cheaper the fees can be. So this could also help to reduce costs that we can pass on to members. If you'd like to discuss the performance test in more detail, please get in contact with your regional manager or with our head office, or our financial advice team can also assist with choosing an alternative investment option within Australian Catholic Super if you're in Lifetime 1 and you're interested in making a move. We've also got the member portal. So this is just wrapping up a couple of other services that we offer. In the member portal, it's just like online banking. It's really easy to register if you haven't already. You can keep track of your account. Here's a summary of what's in the portal. You can transact on the account. You can change your investment options. You can find the BPay details for making a contribution. There's a great projection tool if you want to calculate what your super balance might look like in the future. And we've recently also reintroduced our app if you prefer to do things on your smartphone. So really, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We really love helping our members. We want to hear from you. You can call us, you can email us, and now we're emerging from lockdown, you can visit us in your local office. We've got 2 offices in Sydney, one in Brisbane, one in Canberra, one in Townsville, one in Port Macquarie, and one in Perth. And after this session, you'll receive a survey where you can elect to have one of your regional managers contact you over the next few days if you like. In the interest of time, I think it's probably best that we wrap up now. We've taken note of all of your questions and answers. I can see that there's a few comments in the chat box. We will get back to you about those. Really just want to thank everybody. Phil, in order to recap, please tell us, when do you think people should start planning for retirement?
Now, yeah, I think if you're contemplating it, I think it's start having the discussion, at least, you know, with your regional manager or the financial planning team. At least have a discussion and start to see whether now's the time, because you don't want to leave it too late. It's better to have the discussion earlier than to leave things to, you may be limiting your options if you leave it too late.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for sharing us your time tonight, and hopefully we can get together in the future and see each other face to face. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening.